month. So we're coming to the last last Sunday in May. For over the last month, we've been talking about the soul and how one of your responsibilities as a follower of Jesus Christ is to take care of your soul. The soul needs care. So we've titled this series, Soul Care. One of the things that I know the soul needs, maybe more than anything else, is the soul needs to come clean. Maybe you have felt that. Maybe that's happened in your life where you have this longing, this desire to come clean. Something has happened. One of the last things that Jesus did when he was on earth was to wash people, not just their feet, but it was a picture of their souls coming clean. I have this text here from John chapter 13. We're going to start here today. And Jesus is sitting down for a meal with his closest friends. This is the night before he's crucified, and you got to picture the table is down this low. This is first century Palestine. You sat on a pillow with your feet right up next to you. All of a sudden, dramatically, right when the food is served, Jesus stands up, and we read this. Jesus got up from the meal, took off his outer clothing, his jacket, and he wrapped a towel around his waist. And after that, he poured water into a basin, and he began to wash his disciples' feet. All right, so I need you to picture the scene. So let's picture this as a big table. We've got 12 of them plus Jesus sitting there, and all of a sudden they're down. I'm picturing the lamb is being served, whatever they're eating, maybe lamb, something like that, ram. I don't know what they ate then, but they have it on the table. And everybody's feet, you've got to picture this. If you're sitting on a pillow, your feet are right up next to the guy sitting next to you. And so Jesus sees the food come. He's smelling the lamb, but he's also smelling cheese, all right? He's smelling the feet around him. And I don't know, but something prompts him. He gets up and he says, and we read that he gets a basin of water and he starts to wash their feet. Now think of you, if you're sitting there as a disciple, their feet in first century Israel, we can't really picture this because we have paved roads, but if you lived in first century Palestine, everyone's feet were dirty. Everyone I have here, like his disciples, collect dust on the road of life. But when you're walking any distance, the dust is kicking up around your feet. And if you're walking and it's hot, then your feet are sweating, and now that dust turns to mud. Or maybe it's a rainy day and your feet are covered with mud and dirt, and you've sat down at dinner. That's why normally they would have someone at the door washing feet, or you would have a basin to wash your own feet, but nobody had. So Jesus gets up and he starts taking their feet in his hands. And if you're sitting there, you're thinking, oh my goodness, this is my rabbi, this is my mentor, this is my sensei, and he's taking my filthy, smelly feet in his hands. You know what your thoughts probably are? I wish I'd clipped my toenails this morning. You know, that's exactly what you're thinking. And he starts to wash their feet one at a time. I have here that we all collect dust. I think it's hard for us to picture how dirty feet became in first century Palestine, because we live in our American culture, in our towns and cities, we live in a land of paved roads and sidewalks and cars, and everybody has shoes. But you've heard me say that I grew up in the Liberian bush where none of my friends had shoes, and all of the roads were dirt roads. In fact, the drive for us to go from our bush jungle mission station in the rainforest to the capital city, every few months my parents would want to drive there to buy supplies. It was a 13-hour drive. We had this Toyota Land Cruiser with no air conditioning. The Japanese, they thought it's cool like Japan everywhere. There was no air conditioning. And so we'd wind the windows down to get some fresh air, but the dust is billowing in. For 13 hours we're on this dusty road. In the rainy season, it looks like this. This is our last team in Liberia. These are people from the Grove. We're giving away shoes in the villages. The roads look like this in the rainy season. They're full of mud, full of dirt. We can flip through these. You can hardly get a car through sometimes. In the dry season, Liberia has some of the best roads in the world, and the world, but most awesome if you like this kind of thing. Anyway, but when you're driving, and we drive for 13 hours like this, by the time we got to the capital city, when I was a kid, We were covered in red dust, in this laterite red dust. Our hair would be caked with dust. Your shirt, you couldn't even tell what color your shirt was when you started the day. That there was so much dust in the air that it would cake your teeth. I'd be pointing at my brother and sister, hey, your teeth are full of mud, at the end of like 10, 12 hours. They'd say, hey, yours too are, Palmer, so be quiet. And all of us had mud. Do you know what the first thing that you wanted to do was when you got to Monrovia? You wanted a shower. You wanted to jump in the ocean. You wanted to clean. I share that because all of us on the roads of life, we all collect dust. It's just the way things are. Jesus, maybe he washed, going back to our story, his disciples' feet because it was practical. But we also know that washing had very ceremonial, spiritual meaning for Hebrew people, for the Jewish people. Every time they had instructions, before they ate, they were supposed to wash their hands. Each hand, that you would pour a cup of water over each hand 3 times. Here's the instructions for washing your hands. Wash your hands before a meal. Wash your hands after visiting a bathroom. Laves las manos. I know that because I go to restaurants here. All right. Wash your hands after touching a carcass or coming within 4 cubits of a corpse. That happens to me all the time. Wash your hands after touching your back or your armpits. This is getting a little weird and uncomfortable. Wash your hands after touching the inside of your nose at a red light. That's what it says. But for them, washing had much spiritual implications because, like Jesus is showing them, this washing is not just for the outside. One of the most important things that Jesus came to do was to wash us on the inside because all of us collect dust. I have this key idea, and I hope it sticks with you and it goes home with you. On the roads of life, we all collect the dust and dirt of sin. We all do. Today, let Jesus Christ wash your soul clean. And you know the feeling. You know that when you've done something wrong, when you've done something that's been an offense to God and your wife or your husband and your friends, you know that feeling of dirt on the inside. It's just like David says in Psalm 51, he says, I've got dirt inside. Have you ever felt that way? That this dust and the dirt of life isn't just on the outside, it's on the inside. We can all end up feeling that way. Sometimes we look at the dust of life and it lands on our shoulders and we think we can just brush it off. It's not a big deal, we think. We think God will hardly notice. And you think you can get by with it. Well, you can't. Sometimes, though, and maybe you've been here, the dirt and of life has become so much in your life that you feel like your whole body is coated in dirt and dust of sin. You feel like Pigpen, don't you, from Charlie Brown? Last month, about exactly a month ago, there was a 40-year-old woman was hiking in Mount Walker State Park on the Olympic Peninsula in Washington. And as she's hiking, she gets to the top of a mountain and she sees a bathroom. It's not really a bathroom. It's a pit latrine. It's an outhouse. And she goes in to use the pit latrine. And like everyone else here, while she's using the pit latrine, she decides to check her Instagram. All right? That's what you do when you're hiking. And so she does. On the top of this mountain, she decides to check her Instagram. But the phone slips out of her hand and down into the pit latrine. And so this woman says that at first she tried going through the hole and reaching it, but the pit was too deep, so she couldn't quite get her hand down to find the phone in the sewage. And so she took the leash off of her dog and she tied it around her waist, kind of like a harness when you're going rock climbing. And then she tied it to the toilet paper holder. And then she went back. I'm not making this up. You can't make this stuff up. True story. I looked everywhere for her name. None of the news agency, they're protecting her identity, all right? There's some things that are so shameful, not even the news will report it. And so she ties it to the toilet paper holder, goes back head first down in the toilet, Superman-like. And of course, the leash breaks and she dives down like Superman into the sewage. True story here, head first. The good news is, as she's going around like this, she finds the iPhone. The bad news, she can't get out of the toilet. It's too deep. She's up to her neck in sewage and mud. Not mud. It's just waste. But it's an iPhone. That's the good news. It still works. She calls 911. These two guys come and rescue her. I have their picture here. And now here's the kicker. They're like, the reporter's asking them, have you ever done this before? They said, no, shoot, we've never done this. But why is there caution tape around the outhouse? That's what I want to know. This is a danger zone, all right? There's a hole you might fall in. I don't know why they put caution tape, but it makes it more awesome. Anyway, so all that to say is, if you end up in a place in life where you feel like the dirt and mud of sin is up to your neck, reach out, call Jesus, make that phone call Jesus up high, somewhere, call for a higher power. Don't say, Jesus, take the wheel. Say, Jesus, get me out of here. That's what you need to pray. But isn't it true that all of us end up in places like that? And I think sometimes we all need this time in front of Jesus Christ, just like his disciples, where Jesus is standing there with a basin of water, and he's saying, let me wash your feet. Now, Peter resists. Peter, if we go back to John 13, Peter says, no, you're not going to wash. And Jesus says, you can have no part with me until you let me wash. But we all, let's be honest, all of us collect the dust and the dirt, the sin of life. Maybe for you, it's a secret. Maybe for you, the dust or the dirt is dishonesty, or for you, it's bitterness, or it's unfaithfulness. You broke someone's trust. Or maybe you've been carrying around unforgiveness in your soul. Or maybe the dirt and the dust in your life is your anger and your temper and the way you yell at the people that you love. Maybe it's an addiction that has filled your life to make it feel like there's dirt all the way up to your neck. The Barna Research Group is a group of Christian researchers. They did a national survey recently asking people across the country, what is your sin? Now, I don't know if anyone's ever asked you that, but they were trying to find what are America's top 5 sins. And now these questions were asked anonymously. Nobody knew your name, the respondents' names. And you would think the top 5 sins would be things like lust and hatred and jealousy and pornography, but they weren't. I'm sure those were on the list, but here's the top 5. Because these, we all live in this space. Number one was worry. Number 2 was procrastination. Number 3 was overeating. Number 4 was social media. Number 5 was laziness. We're all on that list, aren't we? We all collect dust as we walk the roads of life. We all need to put in time in front of Jesus, who's holding that basin of water, saying, let me wash your feet, your hands, your mind, your life. I want to encourage you today to stop saying that the dust in my life is not that big a deal, because it is. I think sometimes we think we can live with it, and I want to say you can't. Our culture knows this language of dirt in your life, doesn't it? Because we use that language when we talk about when things aren't right. We say, I have dirt on him or her. Or we say they have a dirty mind, or it's a dirty thought, or it's a dirty movie. Our culture knows that feeling that we get on the inside. And so that's why I say, if you have been feeling that dirt of sin in your life, it's time to come clean, because we all collect dust. The thing with trying to live with it, the thing with not coming clean, the thing with you believing you can live with the dust and dirt in your life is that you start to feel the shame. You do. When you start to carry around that dirt and dust of life, you feel shame, don't you? I know that's true, because when I was a kid growing up in Africa, and we would make that 13-hour drive, and I'd be covered with dirt, just covered with, all you could see was my eyeballs. And we'd get to Monrovia. Where we stayed was on this radio mission station compound called ELWA. There were about 200 Americans there. Where I lived, there were no Americans. And so we would arrive on this compound. They had a guest house. And as we started to unload the luggage, I would want to run in the house because I wanted to take a shower. My dad would say, no, you can't go and take a shower until we unload the luggage. I didn't want to stick around and unload the luggage because there were always American kids around us that lived there. And they would see us show up in our filthy, dirty Land Cruiser. They would see us get out of the car covered in red dirt. And the kids my age would all start to point and laugh. And I can still hear the words, "Look at those dirty bush boys," as they made fun of me and my twin brother. I would go take a shower after we unloaded the Land Cruiser, and they would still call us the dirty bush boys. I could never shake it. I know what the shame of dirt feels like. I think sin does the same thing to our lives. You can't live with it. And so I want to say this next, to remind you that your soul, and this was where we started this morning, your soul has this longing, has this desire to come clean. When speaking of leaving the country after the earthquake in Haiti, we met a pastor by the name of Pastor Felius. And Pastor Felius was pleading with us the first time I met him, "Would you come and rebuild my church?" Because during the earthquake, his church collapsed, and right next to his church was his house collapsed. And he kept saying, "Could you come and rebuild my church?" And I said, "Pastor, we might do that," which we eventually did, the Grove did that. But I said, "First, we're going to rebuild your home so that you have a place to live." And so just a few weeks after the earthquake, we went back with about 20 people from the Grove. When we got to his small mountain town on top of this mountain behind Port-au-Prince, he had 2 giant army tents waiting for us. I don't even know where he got them. And in the army tents, one was for men, one was for women. He had army cots, and each one had sheets and a pillow and a towel. It looked amazing. I'm like, how did he do this? The thing is, though, as we started after that first day of work, we had been sweating in the Haitian sun all day. Everybody wanted a shower. Everybody wanted a shower somewhere. And so they told us, well, down the mountain is about a mile down, was the only fountain that came out of the mountain for the whole community. So we go down there thinking we can take a bath or a shower in our swimsuits, and there's about 100 people trying to get water so they had something to drink. And we're standing there with our towels and our bar of soap, and we realize quickly there's no way we're going to go in there and get a shower or a bath when there are 100 people waiting. There were even fistfights that week as we tried to get close. So we gave up on baths and showers. Some of the guys that were there that week, they're in the room right now. They know we didn't shower or bathe for 7 days. Can I tell you what that army tent smelled like after 5 days of construction work and no one bathing, no one showering? The dirt, our floor was dirt. Eventually that dust started to fill everything in the room. After 7 days and 7 nights without a shower, when we got down to Port-au-Prince, we almost had fistfights getting to the shower because everybody wanted to come clean. It's like that with your soul. Your soul can't survive, can't keep living with the dirt on the inside. The soul longs to come clean. There's another story I want to introduce you to. I'm sure you've heard it before. It's about a man in the Old Testament named Naaman. He has leprosy. Let me read to you just bits of it from 2 Kings. This is from the Message Bible. I like the way it reads. It tells a story well. Naaman was a general of the army under the king of Aram. One day, his wife's servant girl said to her mistress, "Oh, if only my master would meet the prophet of Samaria, he would heal him of his skin disease, of this leprosy." The king of Aram sent a letter. So he sends this letter to the king of Israel. The letter read, "When you get this letter, you will know that I've personally sent my servant Naaman to you for you to heal his disease," which is pretty audacious. When the king of Israel read the letter, he was terribly upset, ripping his robe to pieces. He said, "Am I a god with the power to bring death or life that I can give orders to heal this man from his disease? What's going on here? This king is trying to start a war." That's what he's trying to do. Elisha, the man of God, heard what had happened, and he sent word to the king, "Why are you upset, ripping your robe like this? Send Naaman to me so he will learn that there's a prophet in Israel and that there's a God." So Naaman, with his horses and chariots, arrived in style and stopped at Elisha's door. Elisha sent out a servant. The servant's name is Gehazi. We'll come back to that. To meet him with this message, "Go to the river Jordan and immerse yourself 7 times, and your skin will be healed, and you'll be good as new." Naaman lost his temper. He spun around saying, "I thought he would personally come out and meet me and call on the name of God and wave his hand over this diseased spot and get rid of the disease, this leprosy." And he stomps off mad as a hornet. But his servants caught up with him and said, "Father, if the prophet had asked you to do something hard and heroic, wouldn't you have done it? So why not this simple thing?" And they say this, "Wash and be clean." So he did it. He went down and he washed himself in the Jordan 7 times, following the orders of the holy man, and his skin was healed. So after reading that, my question to you is, like Naaman, are you willing to do whatever it takes to come clean? I think sometimes it's not just dust that collects on us. Sometimes we're caked with the mud of sin in our lives. And will you do whatever it takes to come clean? Because sometimes it won't be as simple as washing in the Jordan. Sometimes you will have to do something very big to come clean. Maybe there is someone in your workplace who is messing up your marriage. Then quit the job. Maybe there is a friend that keeps pulling you back into a temptation. Then quit the friend. Maybe there is an addiction that is ruining your family, ruining your career, ruining your marriage. Then get help and stop it. You can't live with it. That's the thing. The soul longs to come clean. We think we can put up with the things that aren't right in our lives, and I want to say no. It's time to come clean. I think, like I said earlier, we think we can live with it. We think it's not that big a deal. We say to ourselves, I can handle this. Or it's just a one-time thing. Or we'll say it's so small. We'll say this to ourselves, God won't even notice. Or we'll say to ourselves, nobody's going to get hurt. This won't affect anyone because nobody will see it. And I want to say the smallest bit, the smallest dust of sin in your life, I'm going to be honest, is a very big deal to God. Because if you leave it there, then God has a very hard time blessing your life. If you decide I can leave with this dirt of sin in my life, God can't bless your family. God can't bless your marriage. God can't bless your sons and your daughters. God can't bless your career and your business and your investments. And so my encouragement to you today is to come clean. Like Naaman, do whatever it takes. The soul longs to come clean. Here's the trouble with sin in our lives, and I have this on the screen, is that sin is addictive. I've heard it said that we never commit single sins, that they usually happen in a string. We commit one, and we're sucked back in for another, and then another. The small ones lead to bigger ones. Sin is greedy. You give it an inch, it will take a mile. You crack open the front door of your house, it will take over your whole house. It will take over your whole life. Sin is greedy. Sin is contagious. Sin, the Bible shows us, is as contagious as leprosy. You hang around the wrong people long enough, you'll become just like them. To finish our story about Naaman and Elisha, I said that there was this messenger, this servant of Elisha. His name was Gehazi, that kept going in and out of the house. Elisha, by the way, never does come out of the house in this entire encounter. So Naaman washes 7 times in the Jordan. His skin is healed. He comes back to Elisha's door, and he says through Gehazi, he says, I have brought gifts for you. I brought clothes, gold, food, and Elisha sends a message back. He says, no, God did this, not me. So just accept it as a blessing and then pursue God. That's what he tells him. So you don't have to, he doesn't accept any of his gifts. So Naaman says, fine, and he leaves. And his caravan disappears over the hill. Well, Gehazi, the servant, is standing there. And the Bible says that he's thinking, what's wrong with my master? All this amazing swag he just let leave. And so Gehazi, when Elisha's not looking, he runs after the caravan, after Naaman's chariots over the hill, and he catches them, and he's out of breath, and he says to Naaman, he says, hey, my master, my boss has changed his mind. He said, we just had some visitors show up, and they need some clothes and food, and let's throw in some gold. And so Naaman says, of course, and he loads a donkey with all of these things. And Gehazi takes it behind Elisha's house and he hides it. And then he comes back in the house as though nothing has happened. And Elisha says, where you been? And Gehazi says, I haven't been anywhere. I haven't been nowhere. And he says, yes, you have. Elisha says, I saw you. I saw you run after him. I saw you take the gifts from him. I saw you lie. I saw you steal. And then he says, and now Naaman's leprosy is your leprosy. And he becomes a leper. That's how the story ends. That's why I say sin is as contagious as leprosy. I have one final thought here today, and it's this. So confess and come clean. There's one last story I want to point you to in the Bible. You know it well. It's a story of David and Bathsheba. I'm not going to read it because I think most of you know it, but we know that David has this affair with Bathsheba, right? He sees her, he sleeps with her, she becomes pregnant. In order to hide his sin, I told you we never commit single sins. He now kills her husband in order to bury the whole thing. But it doesn't. Word gets out what happened. And a prophet named Nathan comes to David, and he confronts him. And he says, you're a liar, you're a cheat. And he says, it's time to come clean. The good news is, David turns his life around. And he writes Psalm 51. Here's what he writes. This is his psalm of confession. It's a very powerful psalm. You need to read the whole thing. I'm just going to read a couple of verses. God, give me mercy from your fountain of forgiveness. I know your abundant love is enough to wash away my guilt. Because your compassion is so great, take away this shameful guilt of sin. Forgive the full extent of my rebellious ways and erase the deep stain on my conscience because I am so ashamed. So the question is, if there's dirt in your life, how do we come clean? How does confession work? So I have this, and take these thoughts home with you. We come clean, first of all, by being honest. It starts with you being honest with yourself, with God, with your spouse, with your friends. You have to admit that there's dirt and dust in your life before God can do anything about it. And then coming clean, it requires that you take a deep look on the inside. Confession requires this very deep cleaning, getting into the corners of your soul and cleaning it out. Sometimes we just want to take care of the obvious things. I want to say no, take care of the hidden things. In my book, God Can't Sleep, I write about the Wheaton revival. When I was a college pastor in Wheaton on a Sunday night, they have a chapel service in Pierce Chapel every Sunday night at 5 o'clock. And the students were there. And for some reason that week, they put a microphone on the stage. And they said, if any of you, these are about 500 college students in the room, they said, if any of you want to come and confess a sin, come up to the mic and confess your sin. Well, sure enough, it was crickets. You know, how many college students want to go stand in front of a room full of people like this and confess your sin? But finally, one young woman, college student, she walks up and she confesses her sin. And then another one. And then another, and then a line started on the stage, and then more, and then the line went down the aisle. The line went longer and longer out the door. Word got out to the dorms that people were confessing their sins. The dorms started to empty, and more than 1,000 students came over. They started confessing sins at around 5:30 or 6 that night. At midnight, this is true, at midnight, the line was still at the door. They said, come back tomorrow night. So that was the first time I went, was on Monday. Again, there was a line out the door of students confessing their sin. This went on Monday night, Tuesday night, Wednesday night, Thursday night. Finally, the last student was able to confess their sin. You know what really stuck with me was watching the students come in with the garbage, the junk of life in their hands, because they had cleaned out their closets. Some of them had armloads of pornography. They had cleaned out their dresser drawers. Some came in with bags of alcohol. They cleaned out their closets. Some of them literally brought in bags and bags of clothes and said, my sin has been being obsessed with what I wear, so I'm leaving all my clothes right here. They cleaned out the trunks of their cars, and they brought all of their garbage from their life. I want to say that has to happen with all of us. There has to be that moment when we have this deep cleaning and we go into the deepest recesses of our soul and we say, Jesus, wash me clean. And do you know what happens next? Confession will be the most freeing thing that you ever do. Your life will be lighter than you've ever thought it could be. You've been walking around for years with this dirt caked on your life, and now you can be free. That's what Jesus Christ does. I want to end with this today. And it's this idea that Jesus waits for you. Jesus waits to wash your soul clean. It's where we started. I'll read one more paragraph from Psalm 51. David writes, "Purify my conscience. Make this leper clean." Again, he's not even a leper, but he feels like one. "Wash me in your love until I'm pure in my heart. Satisfy me with your sweetness, and my song of joy will return. The places you have crushed within me will rejoice in your healing touch. Hide my sins from your face. Erase all my guilt by your saving grace." So Jesus, again, I say, is standing there waiting to wash the dirt from your life. And maybe you've been living with it for years, thinking that it's okay, thinking that you can't get rid of it. I want to say today's the day to come clean. I want to invite you right now to stand. Could all of us stand as our band starts to play? Could you stand with me? And I want to say this. Today, this message is the right message because we have a baptism. We have people that are going to be symbolically washed by Jesus Christ. I want to invite you. Can I see the hands of everyone who's being baptized today? Can you raise your hand? Can we applaud that? Everybody, hold your hand up. Go ahead. Now, I want to say this. Even if you didn't plan to be baptized today, at the end of this song, come and join us and be baptized. We have extra t-shirts, we have extra shorts, we have extra towels. But if today you feel that need to come clean and you need Jesus Christ to wash you more than you ever have in your life, then today is that time. Then come with us and be baptized and come clean. Make that statement today. Would you pray about that and think about that as we sing this final song? Andrea, thank you.